is the K-Pop Cast, bringing you the best sounds and ideas in K-pop each week. I'm your host, Stephanie.
I'm Guy Dragon.
Hello, everybody. It's your PD Nim, Michaela.
And welcoming back to the show, we have a very special guest we're excited about. Welcome back, Sam from Southpaw Podcast Network, a.k.a. Liberationist M.A.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I must have done good the first time, right? To get a call back.
Knocked it out of the park.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
It's like when you get a call back for an audition. You're like, oh, I must have done good the first time.
Hell yeah, you did. So for this special K-Drama Cast episode, we're bringing you the best scenes and ideas in K-dramas and diving into a discussion about good, evil, and the law in K-drama with a focus on Flower of Evil and Extraordinary Attorney Woo. So just a little more context on these. Last time we talked about K-drama here on the podcast, we dived into Sky Castle, and coincidentally, Sam was with us as well. And we talked about how in Sky Castle, it really illuminates the harsh pressures on Korean youth to be quote unquote successful and to suppress their own feelings to get there to the top. And the dramas we're introducing today, Extraordinary Attorney Woo and Flower of Evil, approach this same topic through a criminal justice lens. Like what happens to people who are not able to be high functioning for whatever reason, aka quote unquote normal in society as adults? How does the legal system handle this? Handle people who are not quote unquote normal, right? So we're going to be diving deeper into this and see what these shows have to say.
But before we dive in, don't forget to join the K-Pop Cast community on Slack and sign up for hard-hitting editorial on our newsletter. Links to those in the episode description.
All right, so why don't we start with a quick pitch about each show? I think Michaela wrote these. You want to jump in?
Yeah, so both of these shows are now officially on Netflix. So I just kind of copied over the official Netflix boilerplate, pitch for the show. So first one with Attorney Woo or 이상한 변호사. Can you read that one, Stephanie?
I mean, Sam, you want to?
I don't even know. What are we looking at here?
No, just like the Korean title. 변호사. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 변호사, yeah.
Yeah, which literally translates as to weird Attorney Woo or strange Attorney Woo, is about a brilliant attorney, Woo Young-woo, who tackles challenges in the courtroom and beyond as a newbie at a top law firm and a woman on the autism spectrum.
Sam, really quick on the Korean word choice, the translation here. 이상한. I've always heard it as strange or weird. Like a kind of negative context, but the English title on Netflix chooses the word extraordinary. Do you have any feelings on that? Does that word fit the positive or neutral vibe?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to your point, right? Often it has a negative connotation, but then after watching it, I think it actually fits the actual, maybe it's not like a literal translation, but I think even in the way they titled it, it seemed like they were having fun with that term or using it in a different way, right?
Yes.
Like even for Koreans, when they talk about being queer, they themselves sometimes call themselves iban, which means second class, right? Or the other class, which might sound negative. But in that way, this negative term actually is like a empowering term or a positive term.
Got it.
So I think this way was also using it in that kind of, I don't know, tongue-in-cheek way. So that could be translated extraordinary. I mean, even the term, right? Extraordinary, we're giving it a positive connotation in English, but it means extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
How if I literally translated that to Korean, it would probably be 이상해. Right? So it's like all of these things like carry extra meaning beyond the literal just because of how language is being used. So I don't know. I mean, Google Translate could have translated it that way. Who knows?
I know. Yeah. It's like, do the Netflix writers know all of this context? Maybe. Yeah. No, that's super helpful. Thank you.
I feel like they hire pretty good translators despite what people have been complaining about online in the past. Like, if at the end of it, you see they'll give credit to whoever translated the episodes, right?
Yeah.
And, often it is a Korean person who speaks English. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, I found in a interview with the writer of this show, Moo Ji-won, they had mentioned that they used the word strange because to them, strangeness leads to creativity and the power to make a better society.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's why they chose the name Strange to describe the character of Woo Young-woo.
Okay. All right, I'll buy it. So next we have Flower of Evil.
Do you want me to read this one?
Sure.
Hiding a twisted past, a man maintains his facade as the perfect husband to his detective wife until she begins investigating a series of murders.
See, it's so better when Amber reads it.
Get out of here.
What's the Korean title? I don't know it.
Akrigot.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does that literally translate to Flower of Evil?
Yeah.
Yeah, about, yeah.
You know what's funny is based on the pitches, right? Like, obviously, Flower of Evil sounds riveting, but then you just listen to the Attorney Woo one, it sounds like boring, but it's like the pitch. Yeah, literally, that is what the show is about, but it's so much more interesting than that.
Yes. Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. Attorney Woo is a huge, like, roller coaster, up and down suspense, even.
But I think, like, the pitch, that was like how it was pitched. That's why I think the first episode like got super low ratings. And then it was like from episode 2, as the word of mouth spread, it started just like gaining like a snowball effect.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of these, Flower of Evil came out in 2020. Attorney Woo came out this year, 2022. We want to situate them in context. Can we think of any similar dramas that came out around the same time or before that, I don't know, paved the way or opened the door for let's say Attorney Woo? I'm thinking of Good Doctor, for example.
The show that was also made into an American series in the US.
Yeah, which I hear is much worse. But like, are there any others that like have tried to portray autism or someone who's different in that way? And
also in 2022 you had on Netflix It's Okay to Not Be Okay, or I think the Korean title was like Psycho가 괜찮아 or something like that, which is very, very different, I feel.
Psycho, huh?
Where one of the main characters' brothers was on the autism spectrum, and I would think though that was more of a case of his autism shown more in the negative light. Like his character is essentially a burden on our male lead because he is his caretaker.
Okay. It's shown through the caretaker lens.
Yeah, it's through the lens of the caretaker, not through the actual person with autism.
Yeah. I think that's what we usually see, right? Just across the board.
Yeah, because most autistic characters, they're a side character. Yeah. They're not necessarily the person you're following the story with.
Yeah.
I think in K-dramas though, before like now they could talk about these things explicitly or give you a diagnosis. I think in the past, and when I say past, not even that long ago, there will be characters, maybe even main characters, that will be kind of coded autistic, right? Like how sometimes they can't say a character is queer, but they're queer coded, right? I think K-dramas have often like signaled to that, but didn't want to make it too explicit, you know? I feel like there's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
But you could see it from like how they interact or like how they maybe even through voice narration. They're like, the character will be like, I've always been bad at social cues and understanding, what people mean, what their facial expressions mean, or why do I have to look at people in the eyes or whatever. Like that, I think is a common thing you've seen in K-dramas, but they won't ever be diagnosed that. So I think that's how they used to handle that before.
You're right.
That's super common, yeah. The like main character who's socially awkward or has trouble, understanding social situations.
I think that's like common even in Japanese like anime and manga too. These kind of coded characters.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And then how about Flower of Evil?
So with this, we think specifically of like Do Hyun-soo's antisocial personality disorder. So when it comes to dramas,
Alleged
dramas that like have characters like that and leads, you think of dramas like Cheese in the Trap that came out in 2016, where the male lead is allegedly has that disorder. Itaewon Class, the female lead of that one, you know, she is a psycho.
Wow.
They literally call her that the entire show, which led to a lot of the fans of that show not necessarily liking her, especially her chemistry with, who was the male lead of that one?
Oh, yeah. I vaguely remember. I never watched that.
Yeah. And then when it comes to personality disorders, other ones, like a lot of them, it's the character, there's more of like a psychopath. Like it's more of this very harsh, evil end of the spectrum when it comes to those kinds of characters, versus with Do Hyun-soo, it's a little bit more ambiguous, right?
Yeah. I think there's a ton of like just like scroll around on Netflix around the K-dramas, and there's a lot of like cop dramas, police dramas where there's a detective trying to solve a cold case, and then somehow it hits close to home. Oh my God. Like the killer is after them. And so that plot line is super common.
Yeah, you see that, was it the character with the black hat walking around in the background?
Yo. Oh my gosh. Yeah, Michaela and I were like laughing about this, how every drama, even if it's like a rom-com, has to have some like shifty in the shadows killer harasser kind of dude that's like that always like wears the same outfit, like all black, baseball cap, maybe a mask. Then they have like, they pull out a blurry knife, and they're just like harassing or killing women in the show. And I don't know, we just laugh about that trope. It's like so unnecessary to me.
Yeah, the best example of that for me is Let's Eat, which is just like a show about mukbang, but there's like this subplot of a serial killer stalking the neighborhood that I'm pretty sure never gets resolved in the series. But yeah, it just has to be there.
That sounds like a Korean movies bleeding over to K-dramas, right? Because when I was looking at the synopsis for Flower of Evil, I haven't seen it, but just reading the synopsis, it sounded like a lot of Korean movies, especially that were popular several years ago.
Yeah.
And so because of that popularity, I think K-drama writers were trying to bleed that in to K-dramas, right? Because before K-drama, when you said you watch Korean drama, it also meant a certain type of storyline, right? And then since then, now K-drama means anything. Anything can be a K-drama, meaning it could be romance, it could be horror, it could be thriller, it could be comedy, all of those, right? But so I think that was introducing some of those like movie elements that helped to create like these different K-drama genres.
Yep.
Even that other show we talked about last time, Sky Castle, has like a murder mystery subplot.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. That's true. So, like in terms of what makes these shows stand out, like we just talked.
Can I add one more to the list of like predecessors?
Yes.
This might sound weird, but like Oh My Ghostess, and how she has like her like shy personality, and then she has her like when she's possessed, like a super outgoing personality.
And they called her mentally ill.
It's like alluded to like being bipolar or whatever.
Yeah, there are a lot of shows like that where they have was it dissociative identity disorder or like multiple personality disorder, but it's very rarely examined like as trying to understand like their experience in life. It's usually more like comedic. Like specifically another one is like Kill Me Heal Me with Park Seo-joon and Ji-sung, where Ji-sung's character has multiple personality disorder, but it's mostly there just to kind of reflect his past trauma. And it's just something that they use to like show that he's had trauma. And because of this trauma, he now has these personalities that help move the plot of the story.
So starting with Attorney Woo, what do we think makes this show stand out from the average like legal drama or stand out from the previous shows we listed that showed mental health or mental disorder?
I think you can't even talk about how it stands out from other legal dramas because it was so popular. Like, it wasn't just like a popular one in that category, right? It was just like the biggest Korean drama this year.
Yes.
Right. So internationally, like even the CEO, it got so big, even the CEO of Netflix, like had to mention it several times in like meetings and stuff. And he said it was like one of those shows where like he's glad he has like people who work in Korea, who are in Korea, not people from Netflix they sent to Korea, but in Korea who understand the market because that's a show that maybe they wouldn't have picked up.
Right.
But they trusted the team in Korea and they were like, no, because they bought it when the first episode bombed. But then they were like, no, there's something to this show, right? So going back to like what makes it stand out, I think it was kind of a bit of a lightning in a bottle where it was like a very, even though it was dealing with heavy stuff, like every episode made you happy. It was like always like, not an uplifting show, but it was like a very
heartwarming.
Yeah. It handled all those like dark things and serious things and political things in a way that didn't depress you. And I think that's what people wanted at that time when it came out. So it was kind of like a almost like Squid Game, but like a different envisioning of it where it's talking
Squid Game.
That was like the previous hit, right?
That's a hot take.
Yes,
Okay, yeah.
No,
right.
I'm not even the first one to say it. Like a lot of people compared it where it was like a different vision of those same dark things, but done in a positive light or done in a way where you didn't. Here's like, you know, there's a way where the filmmaker can like tell you something and try to hit you over the head or make you feel really bad about it, or another way where somebody's trying to tell you something and teach you something. And there was like more explicit teaching you of things in this show, but they did it in a way where you didn't leave like bummed out or like you couldn't go to bed at night or, you know, it was much more enriching and it was much more like emotionally textured, right? Where Squid Game was just one tone all the way through. This had texture. It had so many layers to it. So I think that's what made it stand out was it was such a deep and rich show. Much more tones and much more positivity. And also it broke from a lot of like formula mold.
Yeah.
I think because the writer came specifically from indie movies. So she said in an interview, she doesn't even know what K-drama formula is. So she couldn't even stick to them because she didn't know them.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's why there's a lot of times you watch it and you think, oh, it's going to go this certain way. And she wasn't even intentionally trying not to go that way. She just didn't know what that way was. She just like went the way she was thinking. She was thinking of it like as a really long movie. That's how she wrote it. And it was written by one person.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it reminds me of not Dynamite. Permission to Dance. Because I know this is like a stretch, but like in the chorus, they have
where are you going with this?
They have the sign language in the chorus, you know, and people were super pumped about that. That was Permission to Dance, right?
Yes.
Where they have the sign language in the chorus, and people are super pumped about that because they're like, oh, they're like, you know, explicitly, you know, being inclusive of deaf people. And I think Extraordinary Attorney Woo, kind of like what you guys were saying earlier, usually the person who is quote unquote mentally ill is not the main character and it's not shown in a positive light. And it's not like their story arc or their character arc is not portrayed in that kind of way. And so the show kind of put her front and center or like put that identity front and center. And like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not glorified it, but like
validated.
You know, validated it. Yeah. Made it like the winner, made it the hero. And I think that was like really appealing to a lot of people, and it probably makes a lot of people kind of like you were saying, heartwarming, you know?
Yeah.
Really
like the
good.
market is ready for it.
I think it also had a similar vibe to that song. Like you watch it and it has kind of that K-pop, like Permission to Dance kind of vibe where, right? Like you are kind of grooving with her. You're vibing with her. It's just like, I think another difference is Attorney Woo, there's no bad guy. Right, you were just talking about how shows have like some ominous bad character. This show, nobody's a bad person. Everybody actually like, even the people you think are bad ultimately are not even bad.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
all-
like the second manager who's always like on his back stretcher or whatever.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh, I
Like,
was thinking
nobody
of
is-
the coworker, Kwon Min Woo. Was
Yeah.
that his
The
name?
slick-haired guy.
Yeah.
I mean the first person that you thought formulaically should be the bad guy was like her boss, right? When she first walked into the guy's
Oh,
the tall
yeah.
guy's office with the
He was not
glasses,
nice.
right? He was
Attorney
not
John.
nice. Yeah. But then they like turned that around within like 2 or 3 episodes, and you're like, okay, I guess this isn't the bad guy.
Yeah, then he
who's
became
the-
like the dream manager. I was like,
Right,
what?
yeah.
Where
we
can
do
I get a
spoilers
manager
or
like that?
Not on this episode.
no,
Oh, yeah,
because
we-
they
yeah,
do
we
that
can
very
do
quickly.
spoilers. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's not even a spoiler because they do
Right.
those things very quick,
Oh,
like
yeah.
right away. It's not.
In
It's
episode
not like a
one.
slow burn.
Yeah.
Like so whenever you think, and that's not even a good way to pitch it, to think like, oh, like that's not what the show is about. It's trying to guess
Right.
who is going to be the saboteur.
Right,
But
right.
you go in there because you're trained by K dramas, and
Yes.
you keep thinking, you
Yeah.
keep
Where's the
projecting, you
villain?
keep
Where's
projecting.
the twist? Yes.
Oh, the
You
trope.
Spot
keep
the
projecting.
villain.
Yeah.
Right? You keep projecting like this is going to be the new saboteur that it's going to sabotage your
Yeah.
career, or this person. It's like none of them turn out to be that way. They just are all people, and they all are coming from their own places. But ultimately, they're not trying to be like bad.
Yeah. Man, that's pretty different from Flower of Evil.
Yo, that's a really good point. That the way Attorney Woo characters are written illuminates this like really over the top villain portrayal that is just like necessary. It seems in almost all other shows that there has to be someone who's just in it to hurt people, just evil to the core. And I don't know. I'm used to it, and so I was looking for it in Attorney Woo. But when I think about it, like it's quite lazy, like harm and violence and like hurting people. Like we all do it, and we all like everybody has justifiable quote or valid reasons to do stuff like that every day. And like it's even tied to larger systems of oppression that make us compete and sabotage each other. So I know we're going to get into that later, but yeah, like this part of the discussion made me think about like why I dislike the like Disney villain version of the bad guy that I see in K-dramas. It's not real. It's not human.
It's not
Yeah.
emotionally textured, as Sam would say.
Yeah, I really like your word choice there, all the tones and stuff.
Well, and also in trying to research Flower of Evil, because I haven't seen it, right? Like Amr, I had to just Google stuff about it. And then a lot of things that come up are like pictures from the show, right? So,
Yeah.
so those of you who've watched it will know better. But I think another difference is like Flower of Evil, even though it's dealing with like more like suspense and actual like much more villainous characters and darker things, right? Everybody, just from what I saw from the pictures, everybody looked really pretty, like much more more classical,
Yes.
like classically pretty that you
All
would see in
models.
K-dramas, right?
Yeah.
It's like evil, but everybody's like gorgeous. Whereas
Yeah.
I think Attorney Woo was like, I mean, of course, people are like good looking, but it's like they were much more inclusive of like not only like different types of like from neurotypical to neuroatypical, right? Like people like that, but also of different body types, different not just genders, but there were like queer characters in there, openly queer characters, people on different scales of autism, right? So they showed her and several different people who were on different ends of the spectrum, right? So they were much more inclusive and representing of different types of people, different bodies, different looks. Like,
Right.
like I guess they're all like good looking, but like compared to other K-dramas, they're not
Yeah,
like
they're
that.
not
They look like
supermodels.
good looking
Yeah.
normal people.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And Attorney Woo, she like kind of grew on you, but before that,
Yeah.
you wouldn't consider like a classic like K-drama, like
No.
leading woman, right?
Unfortunate haircut.
Yeah.
But she grows on you, right? So everybody
Yeah.
grew on you. They developed this charm,
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the big thing, especially in episode 3, where you're introduced to the son of the chaebol who is also on the autism spectrum, but who's on like the exact opposite of the autism spectrum.
Mhm.
And even before he walks in the door, in the scene, you hear like the ground thumping, and he's just portrayed as this massive, aggressive force in the drama. But he, in actuality, is not the villain that people are assuming he is, especially when the public hears about this case and Wu goes through all those comments about people commenting on autism. And it's like, why did this autistic person who probably killed his brother have to survive while his brother died, who was like this medical student and this person who was supposed to make society better.
Ooh.
I like that episode. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good that they showed those comments. That's how some people really think.
Yeah. I would say like Attorney Wu is probably also, if you like beat by beat, like pay attention to everything that happens from beginning to end, the whole series is probably one of the most radical K-dramas I've ever seen. Maybe even more. Even more radical.
Whoa.
Maybe even more radical than Squid Game, I would say.
Whoa. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, get into it. Why do you say that?
Like I said, like it's different visions of like telling the story about Korea, right? Squid Game like alluded to a lot of things. It drew, like it was fantasy ultimately, right? So it was like drawing these parallels and like making allegories. Where in this, because I think of the plot device of the character, she often just said the criticisms out loud of the structure. Like in one of the episodes, like think about how they handled a North Korean migrant in South Korea. Yeah, they both talked a little bit about discrimination, but this one was much more about the discrimination. They brought in a character in there who's like basically Korean Trump, right? And like portrayed it like only Korean Trumpers were the ones who want the destruction of North Korea, right? And they very much portrayed it like, no, but us, the rest of us, we want like peace. And the how the case went is she like explained how North Korean laws, I couldn't believe it. She said North Korean laws are much more fair than our laws. Like she was she read from Kim Il-sung's like law book, right? Like the people, you normally associate everything with that guy in the West, right, as being pure evil. They didn't say anything. They never mentioned anything evil about the guy or portrayed him in an evil way. They just said he wrote this law book, and in the laws there, it's like what she would have done. It would have been assessed much more fairly. It's much less punitive. Like they straight up said that North Korea. Do you remember this? Right? That North Korea is much less punitive than here. And there was nobody saying like, oh, you're brainwashed or whatever. They just let that sit. They just let those statements lie where it is. Right. Yeah. So they just said it. Like there was a lot. That's not the only time. There was like a lot more moments like that. Like there was like the whole children's liberation thing where they were like,
I love that.
training like little gorillas. So give you some context. The gorillas who trained in the mountains, right, to fight the oppressors. That is what eventually became the DPRK. So the Korean freedom fighters. Like think about it, right? Korea is a peninsula. Right? Where are you going to go to hide? You can't run south. You have to be able to run north to hide, right? So it was like these people, the freedom fighters obviously then were in the north, hiding back and forth, coming back up and down from China, hiding in the mountains away from the Japanese, right? And then the whole like liberation army, right? That is like the whole like socialist post-Cold War. That's not just Korea. And that's not just China. That's like the Black Liberation Armies. Like there's so many, like that's Vietnam.
That's what
like,
I thought of. The Black
that was
Liberation
intentional.
Army.
Like that. You don't say that just like ad hoc. Like that was very intentional. So I think the writer herself has very radical politics. If you ever see her, she looks like, like I don't know. I guess you can only go so much by how she looks, but how you would think of a very like progressive person is how she came off, right?
No, thank you for bringing up those two episodes. I think it's like, I definitely felt the same way you did about the Children's Liberation Army. I just like loved it and I wanted it to succeed. And I was like shocked. I was like, they're letting these statements just hang and they're really saying that like the way that the writers portrayed those scenes was like, they agree with the criticisms of the school system and parenting. And like they want us to reconsider the ways that we control and imprison children.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're totally right.
I think it was
still having those conversations. It didn't end with Sky Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it was twofold, right? I think it wasn't just making an indictment of the school system, but I think that was using that to also like do education about like, well, if you're agreeing here, maybe some of those movements in the past that you thought were bad also weren't that bad, right? I think they literally, what do they call them? Like chairman or general or something like that? Like literally making allusions to those movements, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's another difference too, I think, is in Korea, most Koreans, other than like the really hard right-wingers, most Koreans don't have those type of negative views of the DPRK like people here do. So they often project those views they have here and think, oh, that's how all Koreans must feel. And it's like not like that, because if they felt that way, why would they constantly protest for unification? You wouldn't want to be unified with something you consider evil, right?
Yeah. I haven't really seen many other dramas go as far as the North Korean episode here did in affirming, just North Korean law, society. So yeah, I guess I wonder, it's really important context to remember the situation over there for us, like especially non-Korean American viewers. We need to like consider our positionality and what we've been conditioned to believe about North Korea first, and then consider how is it over in South Korea.
Yeah, it's almost like a decoder ring where even if you think you're like the biggest K-drama fan and you know everything about it, if you look up the history of the Korean War and what actually went down and look up the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that happened in 2010, then all those same K-dramas you saw that you thought you understood, just from that education, they will all change. They will all recalibrate. Because like it's always, I don't know how to say it. It's not like they're even trying to send messages. It's just such a part of like the Korean psyche. It always reveals itself in their media, whether they want to or not. Then you'll catch all those references, all those allusions that you didn't know before.
That's really helpful.
Yeah. So before we move on to more in-depth Flower of Evil discussion, we reached out to one of our good friends of the podcast, K-pop Sociology, to hear her thoughts on Extraordinary Woo and what makes the show special. Michaela, want to read one of her answers?
I think Extraordinary Woo fits into the overall trend of Korean dramas highlighting social problems and challenging people's stereotypes. I've seen online comments saying the viewers are now more aware of autism as a spectrum, as opposed to the same symptoms across everyone. I think Woo Young-woo moved the needle on raising public awareness and breaking down stereotypes for people on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, but maybe
let's hear it.
We'll jump in after.
No, let's go.
I just have a lot of mixed feelings about the portrayal of any kind of marginalized identity on TV or in movies. Especially when it's portrayed in a very classed way. Like Woo Young-woo is an attorney, first of all, right? She's not like a poor person or a criminal. And like the portrayal of autism as like, don't worry, autistic people are just like you. They're harmless. They can also be professionals. They can also be civilized and, yada, yada, yada. That just totally rubs me the wrong way. I'm always like, why can't they be enough? Why can't they be deserving for who they are, regardless of whatever scientific classification you can put on the way they think or behave? Like, it just makes me feel like if you have one of these like properly diagnosed mental illnesses that is considered harmless, like you kind of can start getting a pass. You'll still be marginalized. You can start getting a pass. But but it doesn't really solve the problem of like, who do we define as mentally ill in the first place? Flower of Evil gets into this a lot more, as like criminals are just straight up considered mentally ill on that show. And it's like, yeah, that's just one of the things. Like, I don't disagree with the comment, actually. I think K-pop Sociology is making a really good point that like people are stuck in the like one-dimensional mindset of like you're either neurotypical or you're in, quote unquote crazy. So it's like helping a little bit on that front. but it just always feels like crumbs to me when that kind of stuff comes out. When things like that are portrayed, and I know
like
that,
why is Attorney Wu like a genius? Like, did she have to be written as like the best lawyer to have ever like practiced law? I thought it's a bit overboard.
But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there.
I think there's a line, actually a couple of times, she literally said what you said.
In the show? Yeah, I only saw a few episodes, like the child
Which one of you has seen the whole thing?
But
I've seen it.
So do you remember when she gives like a lecture? Where she's like, they're not just like me. There's all kinds of different people, and like you don't have to be a lawyer to like be valued as. So so that your whole speech she said in the show.
Yeah, she goes into the history of it and like talks about like who.
Oh, she talks about Nazis. She talks about Nazis.
Wow.
She talks about this classification of people. To your point, she said Nazis invented that. And then they even like did a random like it wasn't even a flashback. They just put newsreels from That was like the only time where like it was like they were just trying to be educational. They just like touched the whole thing. And so because it was being released was it being released weekly or like I don't know, but the online conversation was like when that episode dropped and people saw it, all these people on Twitter were like, I did not know autism was a classification that was invented or created by Nazis because of their eugenics program. Because it was almost like they needed to create a spectrum to figure out where we need a test because if you're not, there's some people. Yeah. Not only that, right? Like there's people where like they're on the spectrum, so they're not obvious. So they could even be hiding among us. So their scale of what's normal was so pure, they needed a way to spot the ones that were hidden amongst them who could pass as normal, right? But now we use that. Now we use that classification. So very early in the show, they even question the whole, why does this classification even exist?
Yeah.
I think with the whole genius thing, I don't think that in the US, I think that's often associated with autism. But if you watch K-dramas, the genius photographic memory thing is just like a normal K-drama.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. You don't have to be autistic.
Every detective.
Like, every main character in a K-drama can do that.
Perfect memory. Like, the answer to the case just comes to them like in a stroke of genius. That's true. That's true. I call it, like, Amr and I joke about this. It's like, I call it daejangum syndrome.
Yeah, we call it daejangum. Yeah.
That for some reason, the main character is just always smarter than everyone else. They end up having the right answer.
Every episode. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm tired.
I think in like US tropes, right? It's like the Mary Sue character where it's like the female assistant knows everything, if you're familiar with that. I think in Korean dramas, it's the main character. Instead of the side character being like that, that's the main character.
It's the main character. Yes,
but it's so strange.
The awkward Mary Sue is the main character.
Yeah. It's so strange she would give a speech like that or like shed light on that when the whole idea that these classifications are based on racist eugenics doesn't fly with the legal system. Like the legal system is built on these classifications. It's built on like the class and race and gender hierarchy. Yeah. And if it's true that Woo Young Woo thinks these classifications are bullshit, how does she like? That's cool. I believe that maybe she believes that, but like I would love to see an episode where she tries to square that with her job, which is like to decide who's free and who's not free, like who's guilty and who's not guilty, which is based on these same classifications.
Without that, now we might actually have some spoilers, but like,
go ahead.
Why she even wants to be a lawyer is like something that comes up because your point isn't the only thing. That's like one of many things where she starts questioning this whole system. And then it like she kind of does it, and then over and over because I think part of how she sees the world is like this structured thing. And so for her, law was perfect and like everything made sense. For her, she needs things to be consistent. And then she realized like law isn't so consistent. Law is like controlled by those in power. And that is part of like so like each episode, that's another reason why.
It's a later episode.
Okay.
I was really like I was encouraging her. I'm like, yes, go all the way. abolition.
Yeah.
But then
I
as
could
she
see you doing
talked
that.
to other people for advice, they walked her back off the cliff.
Well, here's the thing, though,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Before they finished filming all the episodes, they had one way they were going to end. Then they already got greenlit for season 2. So that's why towards the end, they dragged out the Jeju Island. They dragged out all these things because they already had greenlit for season 2.
Dang.
So they're like, okay, we can't end it.
Yeah.
We got to
Shoot.
keep some of this going.
Yeah, that's the thing
Yeah.
we haven't mentioned is this is only the first season of
Yeah.
Extraordinary
Yeah,
Woo.
she'll be
where
back.
she learns to become a lawyer, and then the second season how she becomes an extraordinary attorney. So we'll see what that actually translates to in the next season.
So I guess that's another difference, right? A lot of other K-dramas, you don't know if they're going to come back for season 2, where this one, you know for sure is coming back.
Yeah. So to come back around to Flower of Evil, Amar, I really liked your naming of the relationship between the criminal justice system and the classification of mentally ill versus normal. Would you mind, I don't know, telling us a little bit about how Flower of Evil approaches that relationship or question in your view?
Yeah, so I binge watched it a second time just for this episode and took a whole bunch of notes. And it was really fascinating to watch. I think, and I was pretty entertained by it until later on it gets super convoluted. But
Yeah, the ending.
but yeah, it does bring up some pretty interesting issues, even though I think the show does an extremely propagandistic job actually of talking about them. But there's this very, very clear and repeated theme in the show. I would say it's probably one of the primary themes, besides cops are good, trust them, which is that criminals are bad people. And the show defines this in multiple different ways. There's a scene where the main character, who is diagnosed with genetic antisocial personality disorder, even though they never really go into that, he's suspected for a crime, and he's married to one of the detectives on the case. And at a certain point, she does try to start helping him clear his name. And the other cop, though, doesn't trust him still and goes to their house to arrest him. And when he learns the story behind his quote-unquote crime, he decides not to arrest him. They have this tense conversation where they're waiting on him to say, okay, you're under arrest. And he goes, all right. And then he uses his fake identity, have a good life. And he walks out. And then the main character asks his wife, why didn't he arrest me? If obviously he knows the truth that I've been trying to hide from him this whole time. And she looks at him dead in the eye and goes, because you're not a bad person. And we only arrest bad people. And the show reinforces this very intentionally. It's an insane thing to say and think. And there's just a lot of pro cop. The show is a cop drama. So it's about how the cops are humans, really good people. They know right versus wrong. They're out there to save and protect us, blah, blah, blah. I won't get into how that's completely bullshit. But the main character is diagnosed with this disorder and he internalizes it, which is one of the most tragic things about the show, actually.
Yeah.
Is that when people ask him about his life, or when people ask him, do you love your wife? Or even when he's getting cross-examined on the stand, and they're like, didn't you deceive your family for 15 years by not telling them who you are? He says, he blames himself for all those things. He's like, yeah, I'm not capable of feeling love. I'm not capable of having these emotions. There's something wrong with me.
And that's what he's been told his whole life, because the society around him since he was a teenager has told him, you cannot feel anything. You are a monster. You are a criminal. You're not worthy of any of these positive things in society.
Yes. And that's the key point of the whole narrative, is that he's not worthy of all the positive things in society. And it's it alienates the audience from the criminal identity. If you can't be a criminal if you're a good person. And so you have nothing to fear from the cops. You have nothing to fear from state or state violence, because it only targets bad people who are criminals. And then the last thing I'll say is the actual villain of the show. This is the opposite of Attorney Woo, Sam, where there's a villain who is pure evil, pure evil. Since he's a kid, he was killing people.
Oh, man.
He was a serial killer as a child and then goes into a coma. And then, spoiler alert, he wakes up and continues killing people. And every scene he's in, he's like not a relatable human being. Like he does the whole, like neck cricking, like and like bugging eyes when he talks to people, like you're the one I was looking
Grudge
for. Yeah. And he's just like patently insane. And yeah, that's like another way that the show just reinforces like that there is this very distinct good and bad binary. That there are like good people who are not criminals, and then there are bad people who are criminals. And the bad people, they're not like you and me. They're like aliens, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and even his wife, Stephanie, we talked about this, even his wife, the cop, once she suspects that her husband is a criminal, decides to trigger and traumatize him to make him admit that he's a criminal by taking him to this place that he's extremely traumatized, by playing him this audio that triggers his past trauma with his triggers his past trauma. But this is his wife. Like it completely negates all that. She's clearly a cop cornering a criminal, not a woman who was married to this man for how many years or so. They have a child. Like the
all of that means nothing.
Versus criminal persona completely takes over in that aspect of the show.
Yeah, that scene made me so angry.
Me
so
too.
Angry.
I was
Especially because she's portrayed
off.
as the one who's like, she's portrayed as the one who like we're supposed to relate to, and like she's in love with him, and like she's throws
the
all
normal
these tantrums.
person, morally righteous.
Yeah. About how he deceived her and now she can't trust him, and like she's depicted that way, and he's portrayed as the suspicious one. And I'm watching that scene and I'm like, what the like how is she the one who supposedly knows empathy and knows love, and he's the one that doesn't? Like, this
she's
is
literally seeing
toxic,
her husband like having a panic attack, unable to breathe, collapsing on the floor, and she's pulling her gun out to shoot him. She's just like cold, ruthless.
Let me ask a question for all of you who've watched this then. Would you say then this isn't a show, it sounds like that it's not a show that's trying to break the mold of the genre, but that despite that, do you feel like this was still a good show because staying within the genre is still executed that genre really well with like twists that you didn't expect? Like, would you still say it was good while sticking to the formula?
I would say up to a point. There's a point in the very later episodes where there's too many twists. You know what I mean? Like, I would say they execute it really well. Like, it's super compelling, I would say, up until episode 12. Episode 12 is where I feel like the like spirit of the show actually ends, and like all the main threads get closed and the main character gets absolved and all these things. And then they kind of like wake the real villain up from the coma, and then it goes kind of off the rails for the last 3 episodes or 4 episodes. And because I was like really even though I was hate watching it, I was like really into it up until that point.
I know.
And then after that point, I was like, and it's well done. Like, it's like good acting. Like,
acting is
suspense.
superb.
Yeah.
That's the thing that saves it for the fans of the show, is that despite all of its shortcomings and it falling into these cliches of K-drama, the actors like in this drama, like Lee Joon-gi's portrayal of this character, Moon Chae-won's portrayal of this character, and their chemistry with each other, like that is kind of what really keeps people like going with this story because of their ability to work with the source material.
And I enjoyed all of the characters, even the cops, like, which I hated the way they were portrayed, but I enjoyed how they were acted. I liked the personalities that they like had. And that's kind of one of the things that makes the show, like, it's kind of different from Attorney Woo in the sense that, like, they tried to make the show feel realistic. There's like a gritty, quote unquote, realism, right? There's like a gritty realism to the show. And that makes it like, if you have kind of a lighthearted show like Attorney Woo, and you even throw in stuff like the Child Liberation Army and stuff like that, I feel like it's just like healthier than making a show that's supposed to seem realistic. And then have these like really oppressive themes, because then the themes feel more real. Like the fact that the cops are your friends, they feel more real. And that is like disgusting to me. Like, that just made it so much harder to get over its shortcomings. Because I was like, yeah, but this show takes itself really seriously. And so I can't give it like as much of a pass. It just comes across to me as like more harmful. That said, Lee Joon-gi is like a gorgeous human being. Like, just
I'm
so
glad
much
you
fun
agree.
to watch.
We are in agreement.
I just loved, and there's a lot of shots of just like his face, And he was like masterful with like the facial expressions. I don't know. I could just watch him all day.
physicality. He's a black belt, I think, in jiu-jitsu. So every time he's very physical on scene, it's real. It's him doing those scenes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh yes.
If the main character or one of the main characters is evil in K-dramas, they're always like gorgeous, right?
Yeah.
Not the one who's like stalking in the back, but like the main characters, right?
Yeah.
Like the evil one is always so good looking.
Yes.
Which just like adds to the evil, right? Of course, on top of all that, you're good looking.
Yeah, he's
Damn.
the one that they suspect all show. He turns out to be like the good guy, but yeah.
Yeah.
That was something that was interesting about the show is that his character is kind of written like a villain.
Oh.
Yeah, and he does these things that like in the first couple episodes they show him like practicing how to smile because he thinks he can't feel emotions.
Yeah.
It's fucked up. Like it reinforces the like, well, yeah, he's got to be suspicious. Who needs to do that? If like all of us feel happiness except these criminal bad guys. But like, and he just like does such a good job being that character, and you really do think you're like, it's kind of disorienting. You're like, okay, this is the main character, but I'm obviously supposed to be very suspicious of him.
Right.
And it's kind of different, which I also enjoyed about it. It's a little different than a lot of shows where obviously this is the good guy.
It's hard to draw comparisons. Like when I was trying to think of like an example of like how to explain it to a Western audience. So I think of shows like Dexter or You on Netflix or Breaking Bad, where you're following an anti-hero through the whole show. But because Idrugi is the male lead, he can't really be a serial killer. He can't really kill people.
No.
It's the impression of that.
I mean, I'm down. Like I'd stay with him. No.
Even if he kills people.
I mean,
but yeah,
right? Because that's the appeal of all those other shows I just listed. You're following somebody who is evil, but you're still understanding them as a human in a sense.
Yeah. What comes to mind for me, have any of you seen the K-dramas Bad Guy or Nice Guy? The Kim Nam-gil and Song Joong-ki like revenge dramas?
No.
They're very similar. Okay. But they have like a gorgeous male lead who is just like the center of the story, like carrying out a long game, like lifelong revenge plot against like the rich family that hurt them as a child. And I think you're introduced to their motivation very early. And so you're like, yeah, we're on your side. And the people you're going up against are terrible. Like, yeah, cut them up, jack them up.
Damn.
But yeah, in Flower of Evil, we did not get, I think it took at least a few episodes before we got the truth about the childhood motivations. But then like, once we got that, then he turned into one of those characters, someone who was really hurt as a child and like, that makes sense. Okay, yeah, of course he would become messed up. And I wanted to come back around to the message Flower of Evil is trying to send about what kind of people hurt others, what kind of people harm other people. Like there's a very clear, strong message where they're trying to tie harming or killing others with some, I don't want to say mental illness, but like...
But like people who are not well adjusted or are not high functioning are the only ones
people who would
hurt.
get some kind of psychiatric diagnosis are the ones who are the only ones who are capable of like killing or harming others because like they're not normal. They lack empathy. These are like exact lines from the show.
Yeah.
They're evil people, lack empathy, not normal, can't feel emotion, that it's sociopath, psychopath. There's all of these little quips or quotes in the show that like come off like science or statistics. They're like, actually 3% of psychopaths, blah, blah, blah. What?
Yeah.
And yeah, I really want to interrogate that and question that and just like push back against it because people from every social class, every type of mind, every race be like hurting, punching, killing, harming each other all the time. It is not this like, 1% of the population is capable of harming and we're all normal over here. Yeah, I really don't don't like that framing. And that's the kind of framing that in the US context justifies increased surveillance and police. Right? It's like,
Racism.
don't trust anyone racism. Like, you can't trust them. There's like criminals lurking around. Oh my God. Like that's used as propaganda for the state, for why we all need to be under surveillance and controlled. So I just see that thread in this drama, and it concerns me. Like, where is it coming from? What's it being used for in the Korean context? Because I know it's to like round up Black people in the US. Like, why is K-drama like peddling this?
Yeah.
So
The
much.
message is clear that like you're not safe without the police. Like that there's just there's people who inherently are evil and want to hurt you. And the only people who are equipped to deal with them are the police. That's kind of like the overarching message. And in the United States context, that's definitely a racist, based on the racial hierarchy and the class hierarchy, like hardcore. And maybe that's the same question as like, how does that come across in the Korean context?
Well, like the first thing I want to address is what PD Nim was talking about with like, how do you explain this to a Western audience? And let's forget that we're talking about K-dramas for a second. Just examining US media, not even like all of Western media, but US media, there's been lots of self-interrogation, a lot of articles about how US more than any other country like loves anti-hero stories and like questioning like, what is that doing to society? Like, then you'll have filmmakers being like, why are you rooting for this person? Or like, you're getting the wrong message. And it's like, are they getting the wrong message? Or does the US have an obsession with always making the bad guy like the main character, right? And then you have somebody who's like a good character that has like actual like they're coming from a place of being oppressed and they have like valid criticisms and demands, and then you make them the anti-good guy.
Oh
right?
my God, Black
Like
Panther.
every Disney
Michael B.
thing.
Jordan.
Every I guess even with the new one, right? Like the indigenous people are the bad guys, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I haven't seen it. Wow.
So
Man.
the bad guys become the main characters, and then like the good guys become like the bad guys. So there's a lot of that, like
Yes.
the Japanese filmmaker, auteur Hayao Miyazaki, who's known for anime, the Studio Ghibli guy, like
Spirited Away.
all that. He wouldn't go to the Oscars. He doesn't like watching American stuff because he says like their moral compass is so off. Like, it's all about putting the bad guys as the main characters. It's like, when characters die, like you don't give them any like qualia. Like they're just like, a non-playable character that you just killed off. So the violence doesn't even matter. And it's just like, and it's a very individualistic story. Right. And so a lot of things, not just the Korean stuff, but a lot of things outside of like US media can't be explained here because we tell stories so differently here. It's always from the main character's perspective. So if you want to tell a story about something and that you want to make that the main crux of the story, you usually make that the main character, right? If it's about like evil, it's about the ugliness of Wall Street, you have to make those people the main character, right?
Yeah.
Right. So that is it's a different type of storytelling. So that's why a lot of, not just Korean dramas and stuff like Flower of Evil would be hard to explain. It's just like Americans are just so used to putting the bad guys in charge. So you would expect this guy to be a Dexter. You don't think of it like as a good guy who might be like, mistaken for a bad guy. That's like something. That's like something from like back in the day, American media from like back in the day, right? But to the point about like police, I think there's a little bit of a sorting bias where it's like a lot of the things that are available on Netflix or whatever I think are the Korean dramas that they think appeals to the West, right?
That makes
so
sense.
like they do a lot. I see like When I think of K-dramas even today, and when I talk to like other Koreans and we talk about recommendations, or like my wife is in one of those Kakao chats and they're talking about K-dramas that, you know, other Koreans are watching, they're never talking about these police shows. But to your point, when I look on Netflix, there's so many about serial killers and whatever, right?
Yes.
Which is much more closer to like, you know, American shows, right?
Totally.
So I think there is like that bit of a sorting bias, right? Where they're like, okay, this is probably what appeals to Western audiences. Like, this is how we introduce them to Korean dramas. We give them the Korean propaganda, right? And then from there, you could get introduced to the other stuff, right? But you know,
give them something familiar.
and there's so many different genres of K-drama now, but I think even still to this day, a lot of times like a typical K-drama, 80% of the time is like a family story or a story about a group of people and all their lives intertwining. I think that's still the crux of most Korean shows. So, these type of cop shows or like searching for a killer are more like these outlier shows that are like trying to appeal to people who are more used to Korean movies and trying to get on board them, right?
Or just, the top shows on Netflix are always those true crime, Jeffrey Dahmer, documentaries.
Netflix viewers in general love that shit anyways, right? So you got to give them, here's the docu-series version of it, here's the fictionalized series of it.
Oh my God.
Here's the fictionalized version of a real life thing about it. Here's the Korean version of that. Here's like the Spanish version of that. Here's the Norwegian version of that. Right?
Please.
You look at all their foreign stuff, right? Like there's a lot of Norwegian stuff on there. There's a lot of Norwegian stuff, European stuff. All of them are about like serial killers too.
Yeah,
I know.
That's true.
That's really helpful. Yeah, like just being a fan, I scroll through Netflix and Viki and see like what's available. But when I go and look at like Drama Beans, for example, a K-drama blog to look for what should I watch next, it's often dramas that are not available for streaming on those platforms. It's stuff that only played in Korea and is like not licensed over here. And I'm like, dang it. And
Netflix doesn't want that.
Yeah.
Like, give me the cop shows. Give me the gritty like Squid Game stuff where everybody's getting brutalized. Give me that
I was like, when this is a little bit of a tangent, but when I first watched Squid Game, because people were like, "Oh, there's this K-drama on Netflix," I was like, "That's not a K-drama.
That's not a K-drama.
It did not feel to me like a K-drama.
Typical.
It's like a movie."
No. That's why Reed Hastings, I think he's the CEO. He said like, if it was them, they wouldn't have bought Attorney Woo, right?
Right.
Because it wasn't gritty enough.
Yeah.
Wow.
It kind of speaks to the ratings point you were making, I think, before we started recording, between Flower of Evil and Attorney Woo.
Yeah. People wanted something different, especially during the pandemic. Koreans, like the COVID hit Korea so hard, they really wanted something that was much more feel good and heartwarming, right? And I think a lot of that isn't because of the subject matter of Attorney Woo. It's more about the spirit of the characters, which is like they want to be hopeful, even despite all the things happening. And also, like I said, instead of like characters looking to sabotage each other, whenever she is having a hard time, or any of the characters are having a hard time, everybody's like care-informed and they all want to come together and help and see how they can help each other. And even some of the prickly characters over time, like they form this found family where it culminates into this beautiful allegory that Attorney Woo makes about the whales. Like the whole time you're seeing whales and you're like, okay, it's kind of like a nifty device. Where is this leading? And then the writer ties it all together to give this analogy about how she's this type of whale that based on some documentary, so some real thing that happened where it got lost from its pod and then it found a pod with a different bunch of whales. And she's like, that's me. That's why I can't leave Korea,
the narwhal.
Right? Yeah, that's what it was, right? Yeah. She's like, I lost my pod, or I was the only one of my pod. There aren't that many people like me, but this other pod that's nothing like me accepted me. And that's like the crux of why the show isn't heartwarming, it's wholesome.
Wholesome, right? Yeah, that's the right word.
It's like a very wholesome show,
yeah.
right? But to not wholesome, right? To the second question about cops in Korea. First of all, I have to point out, cops most everywhere else are very different from cops here because they're very much less militarized. Right? They don't have nearly like LAPD and New York PD combined have a budgets bigger than the military of almost every other country.
Mhm.
Damn.
To give you a sense of scale, right?
Whew.
Like New York by itself is like their budget is like in the billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
Like that's more than the military budget of like most countries, right? So that's the difference, right? They're first of all less militarized. Korea also has like much more human rights laws than like the U.S. So there's like a lot more protections, which like sometimes they'll like complain about, like, oh, you're supposed to catch a bad guy, blah blah blah, right? They have all these human rights blocking the way, right? But Korea has like had such a history of like U.S. backed dictators and like reactionary times. Whenever they have a moment, unlike the U.S. where they're just trying to like split the difference, like we don't want to go too far, right? We don't like we had a right winger win. We can't go too far towards progress because then that'll make people mad. Korea, whenever they have a chance to go the other way, they go as much as they can before they lose it, right?
They go hard. Yeah.
I think a lot of countries are like that, right? But anyway, so a lot of those human rights laws came during that time. There's a lot more like privacy law protections and things like that. Protection against like even like online bullying and stuff like that. So you gotta think about that context. Like the cops don't carry guns in Korea like they do here. They're much more like public safety, right? So I'm giving you a difference, like the autism spectrum. There's a scale to this, but the history of it similar to the U.S., right? In the U.S., like cops started as people who were like militia hired to catch enslaved people, right?
Yes.
That's the origins of it.
Yeah,
but why? But why? Because enslaved people were property. So ultimately, they were protectors of property, right? They were all about protecting property owners, right? In Korea, the history of police are Japanese collaborators. So that's like the analogy
force,
which some Korean dramas will bring that up. That's why like a typical Korean drama, like not like this kind of stuff, but like a drama that has nothing to do with cops, if there is some moment where cops come, they're typically portrayed in a bad light. They're gonna try to push you for money to get a payoff from you, want to bribe. They don't want to like catch anybody, or they're always like working for a crooked politician to like kick people out of their apartments, to seize their property. It's always like something like that, right? Because it goes back. A lot of the writers I think tend to be, maybe not all of them, but there is this like historical memory of where these people came from. Like this one,
it's not that far in the past.
I watched called Fiery Priest. I don't know if you...
I watched the first episode.
It's a comedy. It's super funny, but it has a lot of action. And then they have a whole scene about like this crooked police chief. And he's like, oh yeah, his great-great-great-grandfather was like one of the first police chiefs in Korea. And he was a Japanese collaborator. And then it showed a flashback of the dude like dressed like a samurai.
Oh boy.
Took a blood oath. I think they said something like that. He took a blood oath to the Japanese empire, right? So even then, they're addressing the history of cops in Korea. But that's not just cops. That's like the history of institutional power, and even chaebols and a lot of politicians in Korea is they all go back to Japanese collaborators. So it's like there's that context of it as well. So
and that's you're saying that's known, that's common sense, common knowledge in the Korean psyche as they're consuming the dramas. Like, so it doesn't have to be like...
It's not hidden like in the U.S., like where cops came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think some people... everybody knows. Either some people deny it or some people don't care.
Yeah.
And some people acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Like my parents never liked cops. It's just like was the, their thing, my parents are much older too. So there was like this period where like the really old ones were much more like anti-American. And then so my parents, like my dad was born in the 20s, right? So my dad was could have been the parent. It was like most of my friends' grandparents, right?
Yeah.
So the generation after my dad was much more reactionary because they came through like the Park Chung-hee era. So they came through a very reactionary period, right? But like they would always like tell me like, yeah, you should not break the laws in Korea because if you do, the cops are gonna find you and they're gonna torture you. Like
oh damn!
Like,
yeah, that sounds like Egypt. Yeah, that sounds.
They're
like
like, because they will torture your ass, so you don't want to break the laws because they're like, so they're like, cops are bad. Don't get into run-ins with them, and they might even like steal your car. So just like stay away from them, right? Yeah. So that's the other context of it is like a lot of that's why I said like the understanding the historical context is like a decoder ring, right?
Yeah. That reminds me of, we watched Kakushital, Bridal Mask, and
Yes.
it very much portrays the Japanese occupation as the police force.
Have you seen that, Sam?
You might like it
no.
a lot. Yeah.
Is it a
Dude,
drama or is it a reality?
It's a drama.
It's a drama. Yeah.
You need to watch it.
It's a
It's
really
on
good one.
Netflix?
I don't think so.
Maybe Vicky. Bridal
Okay.
I watched
Mask.
it on Viki. Yeah, it's called Bridal Mask.
What's it about? Pitch it to me.
Okay, go, Amr.
Go, Stephanie. Okay. It's about a Korean guy who's best friends with a Japanese guy in the period during the Japanese occupation.
Okay, yeah.
And he wants to be like a hero. And so him and his friend join the police
He's a police
force.
officer.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they're cops. And the premise is basically like this mysterious, his brother like dies kind of mysteriously. And as he starts to uncover what happened with his brother, he starts getting more and more involved in the rebellion. So
What rebellion?
against the Japanese occupation.
Yeah,
It's
Korean
very
independence
nationalistic.
movement.
Yeah, but it's really good.
Yeah, but
do you want
the
me to
main-
do you want me to read the description?
Go
Okay,
for
sure.
it.
Okay. In Korea during the 1930s, a mysterious figure wearing a traditional bridal mask appears to protect the people from Japanese oppression. A Korean officer working for the Japanese regime vows to capture the notorious bridal mask.
There you go.
Oh, this is from like back in the day. I remember
This
this.
is from
It's the
2012.
old drama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
10
Yeah,
years
yeah.
old? Dang. I'm old.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when in Korean drama years, like even a year is a long time ago because there's so
Yeah.
many K dramas that
Yeah.
come out in between that
God.
time, right? So if you want to be like, oh, that's like 500 dramas ago, right?
yes, like
you want to put it into drama year.
Oh,
Okay. Last, I want to say
okay. Say
one
something.
last thing that creeped me out about Attorney Wu, in case anyone else listening felt this way,
Okay.
and then we can call it. But
Yeah.
Stephanie's heard me complain about this. One of the things that got under my skin in that show was knowing that the actress doesn't actually act like that in real life and is trying to portray like an autistic person on the spectrum.
Mhm.
And like with all the hand things that she does and like the way that she acts and the like spacing out into whale facts and but it probably didn't matter to a lot of people, but it just was something that creeped me out a lot about the show and kind of prevented me from fully getting into it. I didn't hate watch it in the way that I hate watched Flower of Evil because of some of those episodes that Sam was talking about. But yeah, that was just one thing that like creeped me out about it, and how like it's the writers and the director, they're like, yeah, that looks more autistic. That's just what I kept thinking of them
And
shooting.
that continued as a controversy surrounding the fandom of the show. There was a lot of videos of people imitating her mannerisms online and imitating the way she speaks and the way she talks. And, that was considered very insensitive to people who actually have autism for you to be pretending to be autistic.
Yeah, I thought that was a little
boy.
creepy, but it's all good.
I mean, that kind of takes us to our final question, which is like, what will the impact of these shows be going forward on either Korean drama or on Korean culture? And like, I'm hoping for the Attorney Wu case that we will see representation of actors who are on the spectrum take on these roles going forward. Like the door's open now, right?
I hope so. We'll see. I'm not a huge fan of representation to begin with as like a means of change, but still.
It would be better than this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was actually remembering also like an article I read or saw. Like actually, there's several, but I think it was kind of like saying Attorney Wu is autistic representation at its best and its worst. Have you seen these articles?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
best
I haven't
and worst,
seen it,
huh?
but yeah, it's interesting.
Because there was like a lot of the articles I saw were talking about like her portrayal was like really good and like one of the most complex. But at the same time, I like think to Amr's point, but then it had like some cartoonish elements where like you didn't like that. So it like at its best was like some of the best representation, but then at its worst like was like made it too like childlike or like I think to your point. So I think that in itself is a spectrum of performance where it's like there's the range of it is like really good and then really not so good, right?
Yes, that word was escaping me, like infantilization or like childlike her personality. which like that didn't seem to have anything to do with autism to me, but they just wrote the character that way. It's like so pure, innocent. Yeah.
I think the writer would agree with you because I remember reading a quote from their interview with Dramas Over Flowers, where they said that if anything can make our society a more livable or better place for people with autism, it's not going to be the drama. But the opportunity that the drama sparked for all the discussion around how people in autism are treated in society.
Cool.
And also the backdrop of this show is like, I think this writer wasn't working in the industry. I think she won a screenwriting contest that got made into a movie. And that movie, it was like a award-winning, critically, acclaimed movie. I think it had a big name in it, but it was about an attorney trying to solve something. It wasn't like a suspense or anything like that, but trying to get to the bottom of something. And then one of the witnesses to it is an autistic child. That was her script. And then in the movie, she says, one day I want to be a lawyer like you, but for somebody like me, I don't know if that's possible, right? But then, I guess that thought haunted her. What if that character did become, and then that's how she started writing this, and then that's how she pitched it. And so it was a continuation of that movie. What if so it's based off of that character.
Oh, damn.
Who was a child. So what if that child became an adult? And so there's a lot of that too. So that's kind of like the myth of that show too. It has that kind of an interesting origin story where she was like, how often does that happen here? Somebody wins a writing contest and gets his show. Never. You got to know somebody. It's all about nepotism and connections, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's that story to it that adds something to that show.
Yeah, that's
Innocent
important.
Witness, I think, is the film from 2019.
Yeah. So immediately after she was done with that, she started writing this based off of that character.
Yep. So what about Flower of Evil? Okay, it didn't really reach as many people, as many viewers.
Would all three of you, would you recommend it to people?
Oh, I already have.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Oh, totally.
I'm very biased with the show because despite all of its shortcomings, it's a show that I really enjoyed. And it's one of those shows that I go back and rewatch. Because of mostly because of the actors, but because of what I think it was trying to do.
Okay.
That's intense. So then, feeding him, it's like not a lighthearted show.
It's not like a comforting, cozy,
Right,
feeding him. Let me ask you this.
Those are the things I enjoy.
Who would you recommend the show to then? Is this people who are who's never seen a K-drama? Are you recommending it as their first one that they watch? Or are you recommending it to people who like good performances and who are already familiar with K-dramas? Who are you recommending this to?
All three.
Oh, you even recommend it as
I recommend this as all three.
As the first gateway into K-drama. Watch this.
Dang.
Yeah.
Okay, big fan. Yeah,
mostly because I watched this with my mother, and she, like Stephanie's father, does not really watch K-dramas. She'll maybe sit next to me for a few minutes and then she'll leave. But she watched this with me, and so I feel like if anything, that's my good gauge for how a person who's never watched a K-drama or is getting into K-dramas would react to this show in that way.
Would you say it was because of the twists and the acting? That's the thing that really makes people stick to it because the jumps and the things that you don't expect is what really keeps you watching.
The characters, the pacing, especially for most of the first 3/4 of it.
There's no slow parts?
It doesn't lag too much until we get to the mid to end.
Yeah, it's still a K-drama at the end, but
yeah.
You're like, dang, here we go.
I've heard somebody, one of the hosts of a drama podcast described it. I relate to it this way. It's like one of those books where you know all the beats, but you still go back and reread it. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, it's just so well executed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
I
it
would
was
say
not
if they're
lazily done.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say if they're into mystery thriller, It's like really good for that. Like the way it drips the backstory along the episodes is really good. Yeah.
Is it hard to guess the twist too when they're coming? Did it have you guessing?
Yeah. I think it definitely has you guessing. I don't know if in hindsight they don't seem that hard to guess, but
it's also in hindsight.
But in hindsight, yeah. I think at the time I definitely, like when I first watched it, I was like, I was on the edge of my seat trying to figure out.
Because here's the thing, when I watched the trailer for it, they portrayed the main character as a bad guy, not a bad guy, not somebody who's framed as a bad guy, but they make it seem like that. So if that's all you knew watching it, I can see how it's even more twist.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. It just, you're like, why is this guy the main character? Like, and then you kind of, I think it's really good for people who like mystery, thriller, and like good performances, like you were saying.
Okay.
I just want to see hot people doing hot things with each other. The first episode starts off with Lee Joon-gi and Moon Chae-won just loving on each other in the most beautiful way ever.
That's true. And that's kind of rare for a K-drama. Makeout scene first episode.
First scene makeout.
Yeah.
Which makes the later scenes more and more heartbreaking where she like traumatizes him. But it starts off great.
Yeah.
Let me ask another question. I'm like kind of taking over as host, but let me ask all three of you a question. Then, so for you, when you all like think about or are talking about good performances, right? But they're speaking another language. How are you gauging? Because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to forget Korean, right? So it's like, how are you gauging the good acting?
That's
right?
Such
Is
a
it
good question.
because you're like reading the subtitles and then watching their performances, but they're speaking maybe over time you know some of the words now, but it's like but pretend you don't know any of it. Like how can you sense the performance is good?
There's a lot of body language and facial expressions that translate. Like I was just thinking about this the other day. Not from this. We're watching King of the Dramas, which is a completely different beast.
It's a joke.
But it got me thinking about this because there's more like idioms in that show. It's definitely more geared towards specifically Korean audience, and like not really trying to be as global. And it got me thinking about that. And I realized like there are some things that you kind of pick up as you watch K-dramas more and more. Like, where? You know, boya. And like you just like some of it you just kind of get used to, and then some of it like
and you don't have to translate it. You don't have to look at the subtitles.
You don't need
for
the
that.
subtitle to know like how they're reacting. And then I would say like I don't like Cha Ji-won, the woman who plays her, is obviously a great actress, but I think
Moon Chae-won.
But Lee Jung-gi, who plays the main character, he really, because that's a pretty complex character. I just feel like he really nails it. Like he really, just does a good job.
When
of
he
like,
cries, I cry.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's intense.
Makes me feel something.
Do you feel like then the more you watch K-dramas, the more you can better judge good performances then, because you're able to pick up on all those little things?
There's more you can connect with for sure. I don't know if it probably does give you a little bit better ability to detect like the quality of a performance, but in general, I just think it gives you more to connect to with the characters.
Okay.
I don't think there's that big of a learning curve in terms of being able to judge an acting performance, like regardless of language.
Vibe is vibe, mood is mood. Is universal. Okay.
We connect human to human.
There's a scene
face,
really
the tone.
late in Flower of Evil where Do Hyun-soo and Cha Ji-won are driving together, and they're like quote unquote on a break. You know, it's got all the classic like K-drama amnesia tropes or whatever. Anyway, so he's trying to treat her professionally, and like they're using formal speech instead of informal, which you start also picking up on the more K-dramas you watch. So you can tell there's this like coldness, and she's getting excited about the case and telling him some details about it. And she goes, yada, 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 chagya, yada, 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 yada. And the reaction that he has in that moment, like you don't need to know. Like, I mean, I do from watching K-dramas that chagya is like a term of endearment. You don't really need to know what that word means. You can tell that she broke, the protocol. Like the tension is just immediately obvious from how they acted out. And she like stops in the next sentence and goes, "Oh shit, I was just talking too fast. I didn't." Like it just, they do such a good job of portraying the emotions that are supposed to be on screen.
The other reason why I asked this isn't just about the language, but because also I feel like Korean dramas or Korean acting is different also than what Western audiences are used to. So I could see how it could even come off like bad acting. I don't know about Flower of Evil, but like because the Korean delivery is so often very monotone, and like facial expressions are so much more subtle, right? Whereas like good acting in the West is like a lot more expressive. Like it's bad to be monotone or deliver every line so deadpan, but in Korea, that's like. In Korean acting, that's okay. Like you could get away with that, right? Oftentimes, like the expressive, emotive characters are like the side characters, and like the main characters are much more like, much more subdued, much more monotone or whatever. And then when they do give more to that, it's like you notice that right away, right? Because of that. So I appreciate that type of acting, but I can see how it's like very different. So how does that translate then for all of you? Like maybe even like when you first started watching it, you're like, man, everybody's like just like emotionless. What's going on here? No,
not at all. I never felt like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same.
Monotone. Yeah. I'm just thinking of like all of the amazing, like really expressive performances I've seen in K-drama, and how in like some American shows I've watched, they just lean so much on the like witty banter, like one-upping each other, quips and like smirking and joking stuff, which I don't see as much in K-drama. I think it's like, I don't know, it's a crutch. It's lazy in the American shows to have just all of that. I don't know. The Korean shows, maybe to your point about subtlety, like it makes me appreciate and savor more, like the little eyebrow thing or little mouth twitch.
Honorifics being turned off.
Or even like silences, right? Lots of moments of silence.
Yeah, a lot of silence. Yeah. Oh, K-dramas do awkward silence and tense silence so well.
Yeah.
And like guilty, shameful silence. I live. Okay, we are like going way off.
I've taken over. I'm like interviewing
Sam,
all of you.
You're the host now, so we'll send you.
This just means we got to bring Sam back for another one of these, right?
Yeah, I know, right? So, like, I'll pass it back to you, Sam, for like anything you are working on that you want to plug, or like where can people find you online after they really enjoyed your performance here?
I don't normally talk about K-dramas. I'm a lot of times talking about martial arts, talking about politics, oftentimes politics related to martial arts, applying, just like thinking about martial arts from a more progressive lens. You know, and so if you're interested in that at all, you can find more information on southpawpod.com. Yeah, we
don't know if Twitter's going to be around next week, huh? But that's where I follow Sam. He's a prolific tweeter.
The best.
Maybe we'll check out your podcast.
Definitely check out his podcast, and a reminder to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you are finding this podcast, and wherever you're listening to it. That helps us a lot. And then Stephanie and Pidinim, where can people find you guys online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter for now at sparker2.
And I'm at Michaela J. K-pop on Twitter.
And you can tweet all of us at the K-pop cast.
You got it. And
until we all go to Mastodon.
Oh God, please no.
And you can find me at Gee Dragon at the K-pop cast Slack.
I forgot about you, Gee Dragon.
That's okay. I'm kind of
Slack. He's a Slack exclusive.
Slack. Yeah, if you want access,
you gotta join the Slack.
Especially now that Twitter is dying, right? Gosh.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll post my like extended show notes from Flower of Evil on there to give people another incentive to join.
There you go.
Spicy. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This was an absolute pleasure. I feel like we could have had an episode per show. Now there's just so much. But like we hit so many points.